Hey everybody, and welcome to rabb1t's Ramblings, podcast 423. I don't really have much to talk about this time. I did have a month of Game Pass, so I played a few games, so I can very briefly talk about them. But that's really all I have for this time. Hopefully, you'll enjoy the show. My sort of top news for this time is something I'm not playing, but I was very tempted to get and play, and that is Mandragora. It is a 2D side-scrolling sort of action, Souls-like kind of game where you're exploring around and you're fighting various monsters and you're figuring out different puzzles. And it's a fairly open, skill-based, I guess you could call it, character system. And I think there's something like 6 or 8 different classes. So you build into the class, but at, I think it was mentioned, level 25, you can start building into different classes. And so it's pretty free in that you can build how you want. And it looked pretty cool. It is a smaller indie game, though. I don't remember the play hours, but it's not a whole lot of play hours. And they are currently asking $40 for it, which seemed a bit much for me. So as much as I would like to be playing and talking about it, I will be waiting for a sale around maybe $25, $30 tops. I guess we'll see when that drops in price. Other than that, I've kind of stopped playing Soulframe for the moment. Really, the only thing I have for me to do is to grind out faction and then get one pact at the end of the faction line, which is something in my calculations around 40 or 50 hours. They did speed up the factioning, so it might only be around 20 to 30 hours. I'm not sure, but that is a whole lot of hours. I'm not super interested in just grinding out one thing, so I'm going to wait. There's a new dev chat about Preludes 10 on Friday. I don't know if that means that Preludes 10 will come out about a week later, because that's what it has done historically, but I'm thinking it's probably too soon. I'm thinking it's probably going to be a month or two before that comes out, so I don't know. Whenever they add more content, I'll probably go back in and jump into that. But pretty much for the last month, I have been playing a few different games on a Game Pass month. The first thing I grabbed was Avowed, because I had heard from reviews. It was about a 25-hour playthrough, and it looked like a game I would enjoy quite a bit, though not play more than one time. And I started playing it, and I got into it, and I really actually loved it. I got to the end of, I think, the first section. There are 4 sort of zone sections. And at that point, I had already played 25 hours, so I'm like, whoa, either the reviews are way off, or I'm spending a lot more time than is necessary to finish the game. So I sort of set that aside, because it seemed like I had quite a bit more playtime to go. And I moved on to South of Midnight when that came out. That was really super good. The graphics are a little strange, because they look very nice, but they're going for this sort of hand-drawn animation quality to them. So even though my game was running, who knows how fast, it was pretty fast in frame rate, but it looked like it was trying to track to the 12 frames per second animation style, because there were some 2D hand-drawn story bits between the chapters, but anytime there was a live action scene in the game, the characters were still doing that, so that looked a bit wonky. I get why they did it for stylized reasons, but I don't know if I agree with that choice. It just looked wrong. Every time I saw it, I'm like, there's gotta be a way to make this run at a faster frame rate. But stylistically, the art looked really good. The game played really well. The music is insane. I would not be surprised if they didn't like sweep award shows for best sound and best music of 2025. And it is a story-first game, so very good story. Very short gameplay, though. I think it was probably somewhere around 12 to 15 hours completion time, and that's with doing all of the combats, which in the first game I think ever I have seen, there was an option to skip combat and skip boss fights, so you could just play it for the story if you wanted. There are some running sections, though, so I don't think you can skip those. But I would say in terms of exploration and general gameplay, it is very similar to American McGee's Alice, or probably something like Psychonauts. And then in the running sections, it is very similar to some of sort of the running, jumping puzzles that you would see in Jedi Survivor. So it's got kind of a mix of stuff going on there. The combat was kind of not great. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, combat overall was maybe a 4. And then pretty much after the 6th fight, once you've seen all the different kind of bad guys, it just became the same fight over and over and over and over and over again. So it got really extremely repetitive. I was actually very tempted to use that skip combat option because the combat just was not that great and it was the same fight over and over. But I don't know, it also was not really difficult once I got used to my powers and such. And so it feels like the combats were only maybe 5 or 10 minutes in general, so it didn't seem to slow me down that much. But if you want a story-first game set in the Deep South and has, music and soundtrack that is amazing, I would highly recommend South of Midnight, but do note again, it is a very short playthrough at, I would guess, probably 10 to 15 hours for most people. So, buy accordingly. Another thing I got to play during this month I had was Hellblade 2, which I intentionally knew I was going to wait for something like this to play it on because I think it took me something like 5 hours to finish. It was incredibly fast. It was, however, probably one of the best looking games I have ever played because they're using Unreal Engine 5 and they have cranked the graphics on that. But it also really kind of beat up my system in terms of texture size because when I would load into a new area, I would pretty much drop from acceptable frame rate to like 10 frames a second. So I would have to quit out of the game, restart it, let it recompile the new shaders in the new area, and then I'd be okay again. So be mindful of that. In general, I liked it okay. Some of the puzzle aspects were really cool, but it wasn't as interesting as the first Hellblade. In the first Hellblade, there were voices in the background, not very often, and they kind of added to the experience of making you feel frustrated or making you feel helped or making you feel, hindered by those voices at various times. But in Hellblade 2, the voices are constant. There are very few times they are not talking, and I didn't get to play the game and enjoy the game and think my own thoughts because those voices were constantly talking, which I suppose, granted, is part of the reason why they do it, to, convey the feeling that you have the same voices in your head as Senua has, or a person, with that in real life. But the saying goes, show don't tell for video games and movies and TV. And the voices basically turn the game into tell. And it's like, oh my god, let me play the game. Let me think what I want to think about what is going on with these people I'm interacting with. And it just was nonstop. So I liked it, but I don't know that I would recommend it. And the last thing I was very disappointed about, because it was so incredibly good, was I only got to play about 2 hours of the Indiana Jones game, because apparently it has an 8 gig video RAM minimum requirement, and I didn't know that until I tried to start to play it. But visually, it looked amazing, and it ran really well for the time it could run. It looked really good, even on the lowest possible settings, and it was effectively as good as the movies. I got through the tutorial. It crashed once. I thought, not a big deal. I'll restart and try it again. And it crashed again. And I thought, oh, crap, what's going on? And then I got through the next area, which was sneaking through a building at the edge of town. It's basically sort of an extended tutorial area as well. I met a special contact in Rome. And then when I tried to exit the building onto the main central area in Rome, it crashed. And then reload the game, try again, it crashed again, try again, crashed again. Try turning down graphic settings, and it just kept crashing. And that's when I found out its minimum video requirement was 8 gig, and my laptop only has 6. So that's when I decided to just give up, because apparently it was just not having it. So I do definitely highly recommend it. I don't know price and value because I've heard it is very short, only at like 10 or 15 hours. But if you're like me and you're on laptop, be very, very careful, because most of the laptops prior to about a year ago did not have that much RAM unless you were at the very high end. Like my generation is a 3060, it has 6 gig. That was like right at the edge of when I got it. And then I think the 3070 was also 6 gig. And then the 3080 and 3090 had 8 gig. So those two would probably be fine. And then with the Nvidia 4 series that came out last year, the 4060, I think, has 8 gig. And so, if I would have bought my system just like 8 months later, I think it was, I would have been fine. But I didn't. So if you're like me and you're on a laptop, double check. Don't even bother to try if you're on less than 8 gig, because it's just not going to happen. And that's really all that's been going on for me. I may do another month of Game Pass when Doom, The Dark Ages comes out, depending on what reviews say. Because I got Eternal thinking I would play it quite a bit, and I did love what I played, but I didn't ever have any desire to play it more than once. So I do expect, if it's the same thing with Doom Dark Ages, I'm only going to play through it once, especially if reviews say it's like only 15 or 20 hours to beat, then I'll just be like, well, I'm not going to buy this, even on sale, because that's just not enough for me. I would be more than happy to get another month of Game Pass and start with that. And then I would probably also play Expedition 33, which just came out, and it's getting really amazing reviews. Everybody loves it. I think I would love it too, but again, I think it's probably a game I would only play through once ever. So I would probably be happier doing that, on Game Pass and just sort of renting it, as it were. And then with the time left over in that month, I would probably finish Avowed, because I did really, really like it. The combat is kind of repetitive. I could see why people would not be into that. I think there are mixed reviews in that regard, but I like it quite a bit. And that's really all I've got going on. Next week I am super excited because the big No Rest for the Wicked update comes out, and I love No Rest for the Wicked, so I might drop another 250 hours after this update comes out, which would be ridiculous. But it is super fun. It is the best ARPG I have played probably ever, and so I am super excited and looking forward to that next week. And that's all I have for this podcast. Hopefully everybody had a good money day. I don't know what else is coming up. I certainly don't have anything noted on my calendar to watch out for. I don't know until it says it's going to be closed at the library. But I don't know what I'll talk about next time. Probably the No Rest for the Wicked update, if there's anything to really talk about there. But hopefully we'll see everybody next time. Okay, thanks, bye. You have been listening to Rabbit's Ramblings. If you would like to see the show notes or feed the bunny by sending a donation, you can find the show website at www.rabbit.com/podcast/rabbitsramblings.html. When you type Rabbit's Ramblings, don't use a space. If you would like to send me an email, you can do so at rabbit@rabbit.com. If you like my page, you can also post on Facebook at rabbit.com. You can follow me on YouTube at rabbit.com. I have a page on Patreon at www.patreon.com/rabbit, RABB1T. You can set up a monthly recurring subscription there at a price point of your choice. Be sure to put the number 1 in place of I anytime you type rabbit. Rabbit's Ramblings is copyright Eric Stryker, using a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Derivatives License 2025.